Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I have a new book to review. I've been reading parts of this book for quite a while. I mention the topic often enough, so I like to show where I get this stuff from, so people can understand it clearly, and of course to believe that I didn't make it up. But the topic is Israel's nuclear arsenal in American foreign policy, the Samson option. Seymour M. Hersh. So what is the Samson option? In ancient history, apparently Hercules was captured, or Samson, and his eyes were gouged out, and he was chained to two pillars so that all the onlookers could mock him and put him up on display. The ancient Hebrews. So anyways, what he did is he used his muscles and he pulled on the two columns and collapsed the entire building facility, killing himself and everybody else. So if you're going to take me down, he's saying, I'm going to take everybody down with me. The Samson option. So apparently, with Israel obtaining nuclear weapons through deception, trickery, espionage, blackmail, bribery, and they have the nuclear weapons, and apparently it is these people who have a prophecy of trying to rebuild King Solomon's temple the third time and rule the world, be the aristocrats of the world, and rule the world from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv in Israel. And a lot has happened in the past couple hundred years to bring this about. During the 1800s, 1900s, World War I, World War II, 1800s, there were revolutions and all kinds of activities going on in Russia, in Germany, all over Europe, French Revolution, and so much more. So the Samson option, Israel has nukes and a program called the Samson option. So if you try to stop them, they're going to take the whole world down in a flaming inferno. Isn't that an irony to it? With the Eurovision contest, the singing contest like the American Idol contest, where the winner was Conchita Wurst. Wurst means a sausage, a male unit. Conchita is a female part. And this Conchita Wurst looked like Jesus in the head and a silky dressed woman on the bottom, singing the song The Phoenix Rising, which has the words in it, you can't stop us. So the phoenix has to be risen up and taken down in a flaming inferno to be burnt, so the new phoenix can rise. That's part of the philosophy of this new age, this new world order, the return of the golden age. Everything else has to be destroyed. So let me read a little bit from the index, or I shouldn't say the index, the inside cover about this book, and then I'll be reading from the book. In the meantime, I've got a few other topics to talk about. The Samson option explodes one of the world's most closely guarded secrets, the secret of Israel's atomic arsenal. It relates for the first time to political, diplomatic, and military repercussions that have for decades been concealed from the world. It is also about America's ability not to see what it does not want to see. All American presidents since John F. Kennedy have turned a blind eye towards Israel's growing nuclear capability, while paying lip service to the goal of nuclear non-proliferation. In the Samson option, Seymour M. Hersh, a Pulitzer Prize winner, who wrote the first account of the My Lai massacre in South Vietnam, reveals one of the most classic clandestine operations of our time. Israel's spectacular underground nuclear facility in the Negev desert, where its technicians and scientists began manufacturing nuclear warheads in the late 1960s. It describes the bitter infighting within the Israeli government over the bomb and its huge cost. It tells how the money from the nuclear program was raised abroad and how the early technology was acquired with the aid of France. And it shows how and when Israel threatened to use its nuclear power. The Samson option reveals many startling events that played a secret and significant role in the history of our times from the 1960s through the Gulf War. How in the late 1970s, Israel not only stole reconnaissance intelligence from our most secret of satellites, the KH-11, but used that data to help target the Soviet Union. How Jonathan Pollard, an American spy now serving a life sentence in jail, was a key figure in Israel's nuclear program, and how some of Pollard's intelligence was turned over to the Soviet Union at the express direction of Yitzhak Shamir. The Israeli Prime Minister directed this spy to turn over nuclear information to Russia. Thank you very much. How Israel created a false control room at the nuclear reactor at Dimona to give the U.S. inspectors the false impression of that facility was solely for research. And look what they're saying about Iran right now. And they're even, President Donald Trump sent Tillerson over to Saudi Arabia and Iraq to get them to work together and as an offensive against Iran. And of course, the United States has sold Saudi Arabia tons of weapons, jets, and everything. And of course, since 9/11 and Iraq has been pretty much destroyed and probably taken over by a proxy government, it's now under the control of the powers that be, the secret government behind the scenes. So with nuclear weapons over there in Israel, and then they're targeting Iran, worried Iran might come up with nuclear weapons, just like Israel came up with nuclear weapons. They knew what they did, and they're worried somebody else might do it. And they have the Samson option, so if anybody tries to stop them, supposedly, they will take the world down in a flaming inferno. And the story gets much worse as I continue to look at some other information. How Israel threatened Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon with the use of nuclear weapons on the third day of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, successfully blackmailing the White House to airlift much-needed supplies. How South Africa cooperated with Israel to create a mysterious 1979 flash in the South Atlantic, actually a test of an Israeli South African nuclear artillery show. How Israel used a top London newspaper editor to help catch Mardisi Venu, its nuclear traitor. how a prominent American Jewish Democratic Party fundraiser, the Democratic Party here in the USA, also raised money for the Israeli bomb. So we know that a lot of the politicians, if not all of them, are under the control of these secret society, government, power controller, banksters, Illuminati, Zionist, high-level Freemasons, apparently into a demonic type of mystery religion. I know it's a lot to say, but I've been making videos and trying to demonstrate that it's not so far-fetched as one might think. It's actually verifiable. How the American intelligence community was finally able to learn what Israel was doing at Dimona, though it was understood that no one's career would be enhanced by providing such intelligence to the White House. The Samson option is ultimately a narrative of how the bomb influenced the diplomatic relations between Israel and America far more than was seen or understood by the press and the public. It shows that in every sense, Israel was born a nuclear power. Since its founding, some of its leaders, including David Ben-Gurion and Ernst David Bergman, the little-known scientist who was the father of the Israeli bomb, were determined that no future enemy would be able to carry out another Holocaust. Just as Samson brought down the temple and killed himself along with his enemies, so would Israel destroy those who sought its destruction. The message of the Samson option is stark. The Middle East war might very well be nuclear, and of course, hence, the world would go nuclear in a war, and it would be the end of the world as we know it. So I'm going to read from this one chapter in this book on the Samson option and the secret collaboration and espionage that was involved to bring about the nuclear weapons in Israel. The tiny dot on the map in the middle of the Middle East, where during 9/11 all the Middle Eastern countries have been attacked, destroyed, leadership overthrown, new leadership installed, controlled puppets. Syria's been under attack for so many years I can't remember. And even the propaganda these days is still focusing on Iran. So during World War II, they demonized the Germans, and then they created the Holocaust industry, where even before World War II, in the newspapers in New York and London and the world, they were saying that 6 million Jews' lives were being threatened. Lest we forget, before World War I, when Russia and the Tsar were policing and controlling the Jewish people in Russia because they had problems, many of the Jews were fleeing to Germany, where they found safe haven and even prospered and found their Garden of Eden, their utopia. A lot of those Jews didn't want to turn traitor on Germany during World War I, but some leading Zionist Jewish elites made a deal with Britain, who was losing World War I, called the Balfour Agreement, and they said, we control the USA President Woodrow Wilson. We've got all the money. We'll support you, and you'll turn the tide and win the war with Germany. In return, you'll support our efforts to obtain the Palestinians' land, to create the prophesied state of Israel. I guess they neglected to say all the other things they were going to do, espionage and spying and bribery, and to obtain nuclear weapons and someday even have a Samson option. I suppose if the British had known that, they wouldn't have agreed. Anyways, the previous video I made, this is going to be series 168. You can get this book online, maybe at the library. I did this book, The Israeli Test. There's a little bit on the front of this I want to read. because I kept saying when I started to try to read this book earlier, it was just too obnoxious and arrogant, crazy philosophy, obviously by some people who are a little bit not right in the head, to say it politely. So chapter 1 on this book that I did recently, just published, series 167. I didn't read from the front of this book. I just went inside and read one of the other chapters. But let me just start from the very first page and read about a page and a half. The central issue in international politics, dividing the world into two factions, armies, two fractious armies, is the tiny state of Israel. I called it a dot on the map, apparently in control of the whole world. And you might ask, how is that possible? And I'm going to show it. The central issue in international politics, dividing the world into two fractions, armies, is the tiny state of Israel. The prime issue is not a global war of civilizations between the West and the Islamic Arabs, or a split between Arabs and Jews. So the prime issue is not a global war of civilizations. These conflicts are real and salient, but they obscure the deeper moral and ideological war. So they obscure, kind of put a veil between the deeper moral and ideological war. The real issue is between the rule of law and the rule of liberal egalitarianism, between creative excellence and courteous fairness, between admiration of achievement versus envy and resentment of it. Please remember these sentences. The real issue is between the rule of law and the rule of the leveler egalitarianism. I'll have to go look that word up. Between admiration of achievement versus envy and the resentment of it. So apparently this tiny state of Israel is bragging about its admiration of achievement, and we, the rest of the world, and I guess for a couple thousand years, are envious and resentment of their achievements. Israel defines a line of demarcation. On one side, marshaled at the United Nations and in universities around the globe, are those who see capitalism as a zero-sum game in which success comes at the expense of the poor and the environment. Every gain for one party comes at the cost of another. On the other side are those who see the genius and the good fortune of some as a source of wealth and opportunity for all. The test can be summarized by a few questions. The Israeli test. What is your attitude toward people who excel you in the creation of wealth? So they're asking, we the people, anybody who reads this book, what is your attitude toward people who excel you at the creation of wealth or in other accomplishments? So what do you think about people who are managed to gain a lot of wealth and other accomplishments? Do you aspire to their excellence? Or do you seethe at it? Are you just jealous and envious? They're saying that to the rest of the world, and I've read that in many other books. Encyclopedia Judaica, Protocols of Zion. This is an attitude of a certain group of people, and I'll explain further. Do you admire and celebrate exceptional achievement? Or do you impugn it and seek to tear it down? So throughout a couple thousand years, the Jews have always said it was their propensity, their ability to be able to obtain all of the wealth wherever they went, which eventually made everybody else upset, and threw them out of the area, ran them out with pitchforks, banished them, exiled them, and even executed them. Carleen Glick, the dauntless deputy managing editor of the Jerusalem Post, sums it up. Some people admire success, and some people envy it. The enviers hate Israel. I just thought I'd read that. It was so important when I read it a while ago. As you can see, I highlighted it in yellow and red. So it is this kind of mentality that has the nuclear weapons, something called the Samson option. And I've been saying all along, when you're talking about Israel, and you're talking about now they're a nuclear country, and you talk about the history of the Jewish people having trouble wherever they went for a couple thousand years. It's in all the books, and the Encyclopedia Judaica, many other books I went over. And it has something to do with the Kabbalah, mysticism. And many of the Kabbalists have been accused of sorcery, which is witchcraft. So it has something to do with the occult. And I've been focusing largely on trying to uncover what is the occult, what is witchcraft. And it appears it's some kind of spiritualism, some kind of dealing with entities on the other side, fallen angels, demons, whatever you want. I guess the New Age terminology would be Palladians, Orions, Arcturians, gray aliens, tall Nordics, tall whites, reptilian aliens, orbs, oranges, avians. And somehow they have managed, it seems, as we know if you've been studying the stuff on UFO and aliens and the many cases of abductions, and then the re-abduction where they would show the lady the offspring that they had produced from her, the hybrid creatures. And then, of course, with the one book I went over, The Aliens Among Us, Ruth Montgomery, with the Arcturians, apparently the spiritual beings from Arcturia, wherever it is, can come to Earth one of two ways, maybe others, but the one of two I'm talking about that I read about in the book on series number 163, they can be born into a human body. And then, of course, the Eye of the Centaur, series 164, was about reincarnation and more details about that. Or they can come, the Arcturians can come here by some kind of teleportation and walk into a human body of somebody that's actually grown. So that's kind of spooky, but we're talking about some kind of interdimensional being, invisible realm, spiritual being. Least we not forget, we humans are spiritual beings, avatars in these biological bodies. So are our spirits, on the many people you see on the streets, could some of them be from Orion? Some of them, the spiritual entity, the avatar, be from Arcturus, be from the Pleiades, the Vedas, and the many other constellations in the sky. And of course, there's a lot of other curious conversations out there. You know that the Earth is not really round. It's flat, with a dome over it. creating some kind of electromagnetic encompassing cage like a fishbowl, and using electromagnetic and other physics energies, creating this matrix, this very complex, realistic hologram on this domed, flat Earth. The other one is we're an orb with an electromagnetic field around it. And also, prison planet, they call it, creating some electromagnetic complex TV effect like the older colored TVs, and again, some kind of physics and electromagnetic gravity-fed holographic reality that we spiritual beings perceive it being very real. I know this might sound bizarre, but I'm going somewhere with it. So when I do talk about the Israelis and the arrogance and the clear, blatant mindset that they think they have done everything. That's when I kept reading this book for the last few years. I couldn't read it. Just like, no way, come on. That's just you two. Who the hell do you think you are? Excuse me, type of language. And then I find out they have nuclear weapons and a Samson option. And I see that they got the 6-pointed star here. And I'm aware that's part of the symbolism for the Illuminati or King Solomon and his magic ring, which he could use to call forth demons, spiritual entities, like the Walk-ins, the Octorians, and Ruth Montgomery's books, Aliens Among Us. So I keep coming across the couple denominators. There's these ancient peoples with a mystery religion, apparently in cahoots with spiritualism that they now call different kinds of aliens. So it's a matter of perception and making the population, we the people, think something they want us to think. But we need to clarify it, and that's what I'm going to try to do with this video. All right, I've made a lot of videos, and I will continue to revisit the Encyclopedia Judaica and make more videos. But considering the topic of Zionism, this is very important information. A lot of people don't understand Zionism, and when you talk about it, they giggle and laugh and say, you're crazy. All right, so it's in the Encyclopedia Judaica. I've got about 16 of these, the whole set that's about this thick. And series 118 of my videos, this is part 7 that I'm looking at right here, Zionism in Russia. Theodore Herschel's activities engendered a revival among the Hovian Zion movement in Russia, and large new groups joined the movement, which soon encompassed masses of people. The number of Zionist societies in Russia increased from 23 to 373 in the year 1897. I've been saying this has been going on for quite a while. The year of the first Zionist Congress. The first Zionist Congress of the Russian delegation accounted for 1/3 of the delegates, 66 of 197, among them Moshkin Shapirov and many other names here. My point is, these Zionist people in Russia were organizing and creating problems in Russia in the 1800s. And least we forget, probably that's why Russia, the Tsar, the leaders of Russia, had to clamp down on these people who were protesting, demonstrating, and bringing about problems that called for policing of these people, and they were fleeing to Germany in the late 1800s. It's important we remember these little details, where they found safe haven. Germany was welcoming them. when they were fleeing from Russia. And then, of course, during World War I, with the Balfour Agreement, all those Jews who had survived and thrived turned traitor on the Germans in World War I. That's some kind of history they don't want you to know. So Zionism has been around a long time. And I'm going to go over some more material I went over in these books. I realize I'm going to be jumping around here, but it's kind of important. Again, the Encyclopedia Judaica, published in Israel, 1973. Never before has so much information been printed in English for everybody to be able to obtain. But apparently, these people who think they're better than the rest of us don't think that a lot of us would take the time to go find out the truth. So there is a topic in this book here, number 15, under S2U. So I looked up the United States, and I looked up the chapter on anti-Semitism, and I made videos on this material. This is series 106. So how many did I make? Believe it or not, series part 2. So I've got more to make, so 2 2-hour videos, 4 hours. I just want to read this one portion. The Civil War period and thereafter. The United States Civil War between the North and the South. And I make statements all the time in my videos about the Jewish involvement in that, like the Jewish involvement in 9/11. And this is important information. The first substantial and open anti-Semitic agitation in the United States, this is in my video, part 1, 106, Freemasonry and Satanism series. Agitation in the United States was evidenced during the Civil War. This is in the Encyclopedia Judaica, published in Israel, 1973, 74, 75. It's important information to know. This thing that's going on has been going on for a long time. The Zionist and the Jewish infiltration of societies around the world, and for 2,000 plus years, it has gone on in 90 or 100 different countries. The Jews were banished, exiled, or policed. And like I said, in Russia, they were fleeing in the late 1800s because of the Russian pogroms, some kind of control mechanism and policing of the Jews, because of their propensity to gain control over the economic system, monies, land, and everything with their lending and all that stuff. And I suspect using the Kabbalah, magic, witchcraft, and all that in their tools to obtain success. And I can show that's true in this video. The economic dislocations and frayed tempers of this critical period released prejudices that had slumbered below the surface. And when I do read the Encyclopedia Judaica, I do understand who published it, and that they will paint their side as the good geniuses of our world, and the rest of us as envious, prejudiced peoples. Both in the North and the South, Jews were accused by some newspapers and political leaders of aiding the enemy, smuggling, profiteering, draft dodging, and speculating. Anything new there from what I've been talking about for 4 years in videos, over 600 hours, over 200 books? I've got about 800 more books in this office to go. Almost every political opponent of Judah B. Benjamin, the Confederate Secretary of State, made unflattering references to his Jewishness. Among the prominent figures who displayed anti-Semitic tendencies were generals William T. Sherman, Benjamin F. Butler, Parson, William Brownlow, Congressman Henry Foote, Senator Henry Wilson, The major anti-Semitic incident of the war originated with General Ulysses Grant. This is page 1649, by the way. In what has been called the most sweeping anti-Jewish regulation in all American history, Grant, in his General Order Number 11, December 17, 1862, ordered the expulsion of all Jews as a class within 24 hours from the Department of the Tennessee, comprising parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. However, President Abraham Lincoln directed the revocation of Grant's order. The unpleasant episode of the Civil War years should not obscure the fact that the Jews of the United States were perhaps freer than Jews had ever been since their dispersion from Palestine. So like I said, I made a videos on that United States topic in the Encyclopedia Judaica. Please go read it. And I made 2 videos on the anti-Semitism topic. 106 part 1, 106 part 2, about 4 hours. So I mention this stuff regularly in my videos. And I just think it's important that we understand how long this has been going on. And we need to try to understand what is behind what's been going on. What causes all this? What cult or religion do these people have? What makes them focused on obtaining wealth and profiteering off of wars and other activities that infuriate or even cause the governments to take police action? Yet again, here in the United States, and I just read about what they did in Russia. And please remember, I've got, this is 168 in the series. And it's over 200 books and 600 plus hours of material in 4 years. I'm going to be jumping around here on different books, but it's only a small sampling of all the hours of material. You can go watch my videos or go look on my website, rickmiracle.com, and the top left hand side you should find a link to the names of all the books I've reviewed and the videos I've made on YouTube. You can cut and paste that and make a cheat sheet so you can review this material in the order that you want to, where I am attempting to connect the dots because of my belief it's all connected. There is only one reality, and it does encompass the physical reality and the non-physical reality. And that would include we physical biological humans with all the plants and trees and oceans and rivers and lakes and sky and clouds on planet Earth, the material reality. But it also includes, and it's an integral part of it, cannot be separated, the non-physical reality, the spiritual realm, whether you want to call it heaven or Hades or another dimension, constellations or someplace where entities come from. The two definitely go together, and there are many facets, like the many fingers intergrooving right here. It all goes together. So we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. So what is the historic religion or cult of these historic Jewish people? What made them different from everybody else? Unique amongst all the peoples all over the world? Or were they really unique? Were there many groups all over the world who had individuals who had a desire or whatever to go towards the dark side? Because even in Peru and other books I've read, when the young people were selected to be a Shama, just because they selected a young boy when the other Shama was aging and getting old, ready to die, they would have to select a young boy. They would go into the hut in the middle of the night maybe and take him out and said, "You are going to be the new Shama. You are going to begin your training. You are going to be initiated." And maybe the little boy, out of fear, would say, "No, I don't want to be the Shama." And then the old Shama would say, or a spiritual entity, if he was approached by a spiritual entity, would say, "Then you shall surely die." And of course the little boy would go, "Okay, I'll be the Shama." But I'm saying when they grew up after those teachings, there were no guarantees that they would remain a benevolent Shama person serving the community. They might use some of those powers to serve themselves. Is that possible? From my research, it seems that's what it is. Anyways, another bit of material from the Encyclopedia Judaica, another volume, number 10, and you can get these, maybe. I got them on abebooks.com and some other websites, used books, for $2 and $3 each with free shipping, and they are an invaluable resource. And apparently, if you can collect all 16 of them for under $100, and you post the whole set online for sale, you can sell it for $800 or $1,500. So I think it's an invaluable thing, and there's two different editions. The Keter edition published in Israel, and the McDowell edition, I believe, published in New York City, the United States. I chose to get the Keter edition. But anyways, I want to just read a little bit from the Kabbalah. I'll move my chair here. I made videos on this material. All right. Series 105, Part 2. The introduction, general notes. Kabbalah, listen up, is the traditional and most commonly used term for the esoteric teachings of Judaism and for Jewish mysticism, especially the forms which it assumed in the Middle Ages from the 12th century onward. So the Kabbalah is the traditional and most commonly used term for the esoteric teachings of Judaism and Jewish mysticism, especially the forms which it assumed in the Middle Ages from the 12th century onward. In its wider sense, it signifies all the successive esoteric movements in Judaism that evolved from the end of the period of the Second Temple, King Solomon's Temple, and became active factors in the history of Israel. And during the past couple thousand years, people who were into these mysticism, Kabbalistic activities, generally speaking, kings and queens and barons and princes and famous people all throughout the world, the known world, not the United States, most of those elite people had a magician, and generally speaking, the magician would have been Jewish, who was into sorcery, witchcraft, or the Kabbalah. This is acknowledged truth. And it's very important in our society when one considers that these sorcerers, people into witchcraft, and a particular thinking that they're better than the rest of us, and the rest of us are envious or jealous of them. They control nuclear weapons, and they can use these occult, esoteric activities to communicate with the spiritual realm, and like King Solomon, they can use those interdimensional entities, maybe even getting information about the future, who would win a war, lose a war, or even using those spiritual entities to kill people like Max Long did in that one series I went over, series number 137. That would be the Uranta book. I'll have to go see what number it was with Max Freedom Long and his investigation into the Hawaiian occult activities, walking on fire and controlling spirits. I made a video on that. But anyways, in the Encyclopedia Judaica, the Kabbalah is a unique phenomena and should not generally be equated with what is known in history of religion as mysticism. It is mysticism in fact, but at the same time it is both esotericism and theosophy. So they're saying Kabbalah is esotericism and theosophy. And I could read all this here, but you can go watch the video. Hopefully when you're watching my videos, you have a notebook and taking notes of things to do and go look up. But Series 105, that was part 2, and there's much more here. Essentially, these elements were perceived through contemplation, and illumination. Illumination. Theophil Society. It says it right there. This is the religion of historically of the Jewish people, who now have nuclear weapons, who were the magicians and physicians, healing and even doing things for people, using magic. What could that be? Anyways, so it did say Illuminati in that book, Illuminism. And this is a Jewish author. I made videos on this book. Series number 2. My second book in my series. It must have been important. And it was part of the inspiration for me to start making videos. When I read this book, you can see all my little tabs here on the edge, how I did it back then. But Illuminati. A lot of people will snicker at you when you mention Zionism. They go, we know you're crazy now, you're mentioning Zionism. They're going to say, oh, I know you're crazy now, you're talking about the Illuminati. This is a PhD Jewish author, Henry Macau. The Cult That Hijacked the World. Go watch my video, Series 2. How many parts did I make? And you might be asking yourself, well, what's this got to do with the state of Israel today and the activities today? And I'm going to tell you, series number 12 in my series 4 years ago, when I made the video about this, and maybe 1 or 2 cents, you can go look up series 12, Freemasonry and Satanism. But 911 Synthetic Terror clearly connects the Israelis into the activities. And weirdly enough, I just flopped the book open and this popped out. The Mossad, Israeli secret agency, intelligence agency, false flag Al-Qaeda cell. So they're connecting definitely in this book here. Many references to Israel, and the symbolism on the cover shows you a lot of the esoteric symbolism and the pyramids, intelligence, the crown, the pentagon shaped like a pentagram, which is a satanic symbol. So more information connecting even the Israel Mossad to 911. Big thick book by Webster Griffin Tarpley, just showing that it's been an evolution of my own growth and awareness for me to try to figure out W2H. What the heck is going on? And another one I made, Series 30, Letters on Freemasonry, which showed me the original two political parties in the United States was the Freemasons and the Anti-Masons. That would have been the Lucifer Deity Party, the Masons, as per Albert Pike and a lot of material. And the Anti-Masons were, generally speaking, the Christians in the early creation of the United States. You can see the symbol there on the guy's podium. So I'm connecting the dots here. The hidden dangers of the rainbow is also the teachings from the Theosophist Society just mentioned in the Kabbalah material and the Judaical Encyclopedia, which is connected to the New Age and Theosophist Society, as it just said in the Encyclopedia Judaica. And the hidden dangers of the rainbow, a New Age movement of our coming age of barbarism. So the satanic Lucifer, Satan religion is one of barbarism. The symbols are the same as those of the ancient pirates. These are the symbols with the secret societies. Rosicrucians, Freemasons. And I keep talking about the betrayal of Germany by the Jewish people who were fleeing Russia. And then, of course, the Bolshevik Jews after World War I, when Russia was weakened, there was a conspiracy to invade Russia and kill the Tsar and his family and proceed to kill, they say, 100 million Christians and other good people. There was an act of revenge. And I just read to you in the Encyclopedia Judaica of Ulysses Grant banishing the Jews from the Tennessee, Mississippi, Kentucky territories. Will there be revenge on the United States again? We know that they are sucking billions out of our economy every single year, and they control the Republican Party, Democratic Party, and entertain we the people with giving each side power for a while, like the Obama administration for 8 years, and now we got Donald Trump, and before Obama it was Bush, and before it was Bush it was Clinton. So it's like a tennis ball, Republicans, Democrats, Republicans, Democrats, and the people just keep falling for it. And again, that was series number 40 on the Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, and series number 42 on this book, the Bosch, the Germans and the Bolsheviks, Nestor Webster, and series 43 on Great Britain and the Jews with the Balfour Agreement I keep talking about, how America was dragged into World War I by the Zionist lobby, as you can see here it says that, which has been active for hundreds of years and was causing all the problems between the Jewish people and the Russians who were fleeing to Germany, the Germans were later betrayed by those Jews who found safe haven because the elite, wealthy bankster Jews controlling the banking systems in France and Italy and Britain and the United States. And then they didn't control it for a long time in the United States, and a couple presidents who opposed it were killed or poisoned. And then with Woodrow Wilson, when they installed their puppet-controlled president, which they said they were going to do before he was elected, they did maintain and get control of the American money supply again. And there's been this thing that's been popular throughout history called the Protocols of Zion. You can go look it up on the internet for free and download a PDF, or you can go buy the older books from the used book sites or whatever. It says here, what I am about to set forth then is our system from 2 points of view. That of ourselves, the people with the nuclear weapons, who believe they are superior to the rest of us, quite arrogant. So there are 2 points of view according to the Protocol 1 here, Section 2, that of ourselves and that of the Goyim, non-Jews, and that means cattle. It must be noted that men with bad instincts are more in number than the good, and therefore the best results in governing them is attained by violence and terrorists and not by academic discussions. So these Jews would have you believe that men with bad instincts outweigh those with good instincts. And I disagree. I say that the people comprising of the Jewish people and the secret societies into these sorcery, Kabbalistic religions are just a few compared to the many of us. But they have to use deception and even assassination to control the society and prevent that knowledge from getting out, that there are many more of us than them. So they're saying there's more people with bad instincts than good, and therefore the best results in governing them are attained by violence and terrorism, not by academic discussions. Every man aims at power. So they believe, and this is the way criminals and child molesters and thieves and demented people who want to torture other people, mentally challenged people, they rationalize. It's something in psychology called rationalization. They don't walk around going, we're just a few people that are sick. They think everybody else is like them when they think in that demented way. This is a basic psychology 101. If you went to college, you know what I'm talking about. It's psychology 102. Rationalization, look it up. So every man aims at power. So every person that's a child pervert actually thinks everybody else is a child pervert. Every womanizer thinks that other men are all womanizers. Every thief thinks everybody else is a thief. Rationalization. So these people, every man aims at power. Everyone would like to be dictator, if only he could. And rare indeed are the men who would not be willing to sacrifice the welfare for the sake of securing their own welfare. What has restrained the beasts of prey who are called men? Political freedom is an idea but not a fact. This is in the Protocols of Zion. This is what these people who are into globalism, Kabbalism, Satanism, Luciferianism think. Political freedom is but an idea, not a fact. This idea must know how to apply whenever it appears necessary with the bait of an idea and to attract the masses of the people to one's party for the purpose of crushing another who is in authority. So they do use the bait and switch, and they create a George Bush Jr. who was completely appalling and making even the Republican Party citizens like me sick of it, angry, and switch over to supporting anybody. In that case, the first time was Obama. And then later on, Obama was so obvious in his gay agenda support, marriage, gay marriage, and disarming the American people, and so many other questionable activities, that people were sick of that and switched over to Make America Great, Republican Party. Says it right here, for the purpose of crushing another who is in authority. The task is rendered easier if the opponent has himself been infected with the idea of freedom. So-called liberalism, for the sake of an idea, is willing to yield some of his power. So these people, you can go look up the Protocol Zions or go watch my videos, series number 8. Now, I just read from the Encyclopedia Jaica on Kabbalah. It is the ancient or historic culture and religion of many Jewish people. And it mentioned it was also part of the Theophist religion, which would be Helena Blavatsky's and the Theophist Society, Secret Doctrine, books 1 and 2 I've made videos on, ISIS Unveiled, series 155, I think, and 142, The Secret Doctrine, volume 2, and volume 1, series 84, clearly connecting the Theophist Society, the foundation of the New Age material, with Lucifer, and in the Morals and Dogma of the Freemasons, series 85. I've made many videos, 2-hour videos on Morals and Dogma, series 85, probably part 6, part 7, 12, 14 hours, mentioning Isis, Osiris, Horus, the all-seeing eye on the US $1 bill. So I'm connecting the religion of the Jews, who had problems wherever they went for a couple thousand years, with the Theophist Society, the Kabbalah, sorcery, the secret mystery societies, the Egyptian hieroglyphics, the religion of the pharaohs. And I believe that's where the Jewish people learned about magic when they went to Egypt, apparently conquering it and taking over the leadership for a while. But in the meantime, they learned the pharaoh ancient mystery religion, the stuff etched in stone on the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Look at the pictures on these 2 books. Egyptian hieroglyphics, this is like a dictionary of the language. And this is the magazine Lucifer for the Theophist Society, created in the 1883-84 by Helena Blavatsky and carried forward since then. The foundation is the Egyptian hieroglyphics, which a lot of the serpent symbols are even in the Mayan ruins, American Indians, and the India and China and the ancient monuments all over the world. So whatever it is, it's not new. I've gone over this book, and like here's just a list out of 28 pages of the names of the Lucifer magazine. I'm going to have to make a video from my media and press releases series just on this collection of material. The symbols are everywhere, permeating in our society. These occult symbols, like Columbia. Even on here, it's where the pyramid there. The sun, Freemasons, and the blazing star of Lucifer. So all this stuff and information I've been compiling on the topic of Lucifer, ISIS, Blavatsky, Theophist Society, Kabbalah. I've got quite a bit in here right now, just in a recent search in the last couple days. So easy to find this material. Look up Lucifer magazine. And of course, the Jewish people having the mysticism, the Kabbalah, part of their religion. Remember, my point here, these are the people who now have the nuclear bombs and something called the Samson option. So this is a famous researcher rabbi who talks about Jewish mysticism. I've been making videos on this, series 120. And Henry Ford, the automaker, 1920s, 1918, 1917, bought a newspaper and tried to expose what this book just says here. I've got 4 of these. This is series 71. The other one I think is series 95, the other 3 books. But what does it say? It says Jewish influences in American life. The international Jew, the world's foremost problem, has nuclear weapons. Obtained them by bribery, espionage, blackmail, probably even assassination. The work of the ages, of all ages, the ongoing plot to rule the world from biblical times to the present, the work of all ages, Series 68. Please go watch this video after you watch the Samson option, Israeli obtaining and how they did it and their plans with their nuclear weapons, even now controlling President Donald Trump, so it seems, sending Tillerson over there to get Iraq and Saudi Arabia to combine forces for an offensive on Iran. You think this stuff is going away? Bloody Zion, go watch my videos. And like I said, I'm only showing you a few books out of the 200 on the bookcase right there. This is Series 69. Refuting the Jewish fables that sustains Israel's war against God and man. So assuming I'm a rational human being trying to find out WTH, what the heck is going on? And this is just a sampling of my 4 years worth of making videos, 600 hours, my 13 years of collecting books and reading them. If this is what I conclude, and we know things are going on right now, something called geoengineering, and the bringing us the 5G electromagnetic microwave transmission system that's going to connect everything, permeate even our bodies, the smart meters on your power meter, your appliances in your house, maybe even microchipping people. I understand they're already microchipping children in Florida, Texas, and California. And the cars are controlled, planes, cameras, credit cards, cell phones, iPads, computers, TVs. Everything is going to be controlled. And who controls our world? Well, Prime Minister Sharon tells us. I went over this in the previous video. The Israel test. All these documents here, which only took me a couple of minutes to look up. Unbelievable. What was that I looked up here? With 1,700,000 views? Oh yeah. Millions of US tax dollars go to Israel every day. So I just simply looked that up and I found over 1 million results. So they do control our country. They control our politicians. They control the Federal Reserve. And they're sucking money out of the United States as if they had a gigantic vacuum cleaner right over Washington, D.C., connected to Israel. They're just sucking the money out, and it's weakening America every day. And every now and then they crash the stock market and other things so that they can fleece all the money from the people and to replenish their cash so they can suck it out of our country. And it's not me saying that. The cost to Israel, the cost of Israel to U.S. taxpayers, if Americans knew. For many years, the Americans media said that Israel receives $1.8 billion in military aid, and that yet it's been going on for more than a generation. Excuse me, I can get worn out talking. Suspect the full total U.S. funds received by Israel each year are privileged few committee. So only a few people really understand how much money Israel is sucking out of the USA every year. $10 billion in U.S. loan guarantees and perhaps $20 billion in tax-exempt money every year. Do you realize that we people in the United States do not have to be under any kind of economic distress at all? We would all be wealthy if it weren't for the fact that these people have controlled our government. Even Ulysses Grant during the Civil War banned these people. Even in the United States, from the mid-1800s up until 1913, the United States controlled its own money supply, and some presidents got killed in those efforts and poisoned. But they got it back when they put Woodrow Wilson in, because the president before Woodrow Wilson was asked to do some things, and he said no. And they said, well, okay, then, the next president, we will finance, and he'll do what we tell him to do. And apparently that's how all these political action committees, Jewish and Israeli, help get people elected to office in the House of Representatives and the senators and the presidents who do listen to them. And even in President Donald Trump, the recent press release about the new tax bill say that the corporations were the winners. Nothing's changing. America's not going to be great again. That sucking vacuum cleaner is going to keep on taking money out until they collapse this country. And like Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's Bar, they're going to turn us into a third world country and let us rot or something. Go read what Benjamin Netanyahu said in Fink's Bar. I know I can get a little emotional here, but it's my country. It's under attack. And they're using these geoengineering, electromagnetic, and dumping chemicals in the sky systems, ground-based, satellite-based, Gwen towers, HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, and other technologies. And they're putting fluorides in the water and toxins in the foods, devitaminizing a lot of what we eat. The vitamins and nutritional value in the foods has seriously diminished, making we the people weaker. Fluoride in the water makes people lethargic. Chemicals dumped in the sky in the microwave electromagnetic radiations targets our bodies and our cells and our minds, as well as the propaganda mentally in magazines, newspapers, nightly news, TV program, Lucifer, Gotham, Modern Family, and Hunger Games, Divergent, and so many more. We are under attack. Is there any doubt? All right, so with all that opening, I'm going to read from the book, The Samson Option. You can go find this book. I think I'm going to read the last couple pages of this particular chapter I'm going to go over. I'm going to read the last first and then start at the beginning of this chapter. Ben Gurion, one of the leaders of Israel, was quoting scientist Bergman all the time, recalled an Israeli about the dangers of not initiating the production of a nuclear arsenal. So I think I've clearly showed that the ancient mystery religion called sorcery, witchcraft, Kabbalah, and so much more was an integral part of the history of the Jews. And I've also shown clearly that police action against the Jews has been going on for thousands of years, and it's even reported in the Bible, Jesus overthrowing the money changers' tables and telling the Jews, you are of your father Satan. There's so much out there you can go research on this. So these people are initiating the production of a nuclear arsenal. Well, isn't that just reassuring? The Satan worshippers, Lucifer worshippers, as per the Kabbalah, as per the Theophist Society, have nuclear weapons. Oh my. Skipping a little bit, only reading my highlighted portions here. Stuff I have pre-read. Raphi leaders are constantly criticized when they called Eshkol's, one of the leader of Israel, Eshkol's big mistake, language understood by many inside Israel, as referring to Eshkol's hesitation about opening a nuclear weapons assembly line at Dimona. None of this was reported by American or other newspapers or foreign correspondents in Israel. Apparently did not understand what really was at stake. We know in the United States today, November 2017, a lot of people are aware that the corporations and the secret society elitist people vying for a global government control the newspapers. Anybody doubt that? TV program, even there's a book come out that I have, Hollywood, a Jewish Empire. And if a lot of these people, not all Jewish people, a lot of Jewish people still are God-believing people. The Old Testament, where Moses brought the 10 tablets down from Mount Sinai, after going up there talking to the glowing, burning bush, some kind of orb being that people describe as spiritual entity God. And when he came down the mountain, the Jews had collected all of their gold and built a golden calf and were having a drunken sexual orgy, which was part of the religion. And Moses was so upset he smashed the tablets and had to go, and then he had to punish the Jews. So this was a clear case of a Hebrew punishing the Hebrews, and he had to go back up the mountain for 40 days and get 2 more tablets. And the same thing with Jesus. Jesus was a Hebrew who was preaching to many other Hebrews who were listening and happy with the message, so Jesus' popularity was growing. But the other Jews, apparently the ones who were into the golden calf Isis, Osiris, Horus, Ra, satanic Lucifer, ancient mystery religion, had to have Jesus crucified. So the Hebrews had to kill the other Hebrew. Nothing new here, and even Benjamin Friedman and many other Jewish people have written books. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, I've made videos on his books to eliminate the opaque. I just showed you Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world, by Jewish author, PhD Henry McCow in Canada. So there are a lot of Jews believe in God, and even on Yahoo image site, these anti-Zionist Jewish people are trying to warn the rest of the world about these Zionist organizations that even control the United Nations and apparently the banking system and our education system now and the economic system now and the government agencies, probably the military now, built FEMA camps, organized Jade Helm 15, and are controlling the geoengineering of chemicals in the sky and electromagnetic radiations, controlling weather, hurricanes, directed energy beams causing fires, and even a press release or a video on YouTube this morning said that hundreds of people are missing in these areas of disaster zones. So are people being disappeared, scuttled away and killed or imprisoned, and God knows what else I don't even want to think about? That's a lot to say, I know, but it appears to be true. And how much evidence do I have to present? And other people, not just me. A lot of people are out there trying to warn the people. David Icke just came out with a new book. Everything that you need to know that they don't want you to know. David Icke. Go look up and buy his book. Won't bother me. I think David Icke's trying to get the word out that there are societies into some kind of demonic spiritual cults that are bent on destroying the world as we know it. It was an ugly election with insults and accusations from all parties. One prominent lawyer with close ties to Golda Meir, an Israeli leader, referred publicly to Ben-Gurion as a coward and Rafai as a neo-fascist group. Many Israelis understood in a way what no outsider could, that the debate was not about defense policy or the bomb, but about Ben-Gurion's profound belief that Israel could survive only by relying on the state. And we know that's not true. They're sucking billions out of the United States every year for the last 60 plus or minus years, probably earlier. And since World War II, I'm sure they have managed to suck billions out of the Germany when it lost the war. And other places all over the world where presidents have been assassinated. And even in John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where they were intentionally sending money lenders all over the world, promising presidents and kings and leaders of other countries a tremendous increase in GNP, gross national product, money, and a higher quality of living for the people, the natives. So they were destroying national forests and damming up streams and rivers and bringing the world all this horrible pollution that now, with biodiversity and sustainability, they say they want to reverse when they caused it. So Israel could only survive by relying on the state and not on the traditional volunteerism of the Zionist movement. So here we go with the Zionists in this book, written by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, right where my finger is. Zionist has been going on for hundreds of years, this plan to bring about a global control by these people that are into the Kabbalah, which is mentioned as the Theophist Society in the Encyclopedia Judaica, which was publishing the Lucifer magazine and all that other stuff, like the Freemasons, Morals and Dogma, and a lot of the other secret societies that declare that Lucifer is their deity, going by other names, Baal, Ra, Moloch. And then, of course, the other book reviews, I went over The Coming of the Cosmic Christ, Messages from Maitreya the Christ, Series 166, and even Aliens Among Us, Ruth Montgomery, having Octorians walk into human bodies on Earth, and The Eye of the Centaur, talking about Barbara Chow and reincarnation and descriptions of the future and the past by these people who get regressed and can see their other selves in the future or the past. So what is our reality? Are we in some gigantic holographic, big gigantic, almost like a multi-dimensional CD where you can go forward on the CD or forward in the past or live in the moment where you are now? Then the Book of the Hopi, where I went over Series 161, where even the Hopi Indians were sacrificing young virgins every 4 years to get favors from the spiritual beings, elementals. And Blindsided, Series 162, about an incoming planet Nibiru, Planet X. Voices from the Cosmos, Series 160, where Angela Smith, PhD, is communicating with some kind of spiritual entities called aliens, reptilians, angels, gray aliens, orbs, elementals. And then the god Mithras, 3,000-year-old religion where they have underground church chambers that only can hold 20 or 30 people, Series 159. And From the Ashes of Angels, 157. Again, communicating with fallen angels, a similar story to Nibiru and the Anunnaki, mating with human women, creating hybrid offspring. Just saying. I keep going over the stuff and I'm finding common denominators. So here was traditional volunteerism in the Zionist movement. So this stuff has been shuttling money from Russia and Germany and the United States for hundreds of years over there to the desert in the Middle East to bring about the state of Israel. And then they would have us all think that we're envious of their success, as I read earlier in this video. And of course, the fact that they used espionage and spies and murder, bribery, blackmail to get nuclear weapons. So the satanic cults have nuclear weapons. How's that make you feel? In Ben-Gurion's view, the Kibbutzim, the Maple Party, the Haganah of the 1948 war, all populated by volunteers who believed in the cause. So I'm wondering what the cause was when they created the State of Israel in 1948, where they had to bring us World War I and World War II to get to that point. Contemplate that. World War I, World War I, and World War II. How many American and European men and women and children were killed and bombed, incinerated for this cause, where people will volunteer, and even over in Israel in 1948 and for the previous 100 years, trying to take over these Arab people's lands. They have done all this. Can you fathom the amount of energy and money and death that has brought us to the point we are today? Even with President Donald Trump sending Tillerson over there to talk to Iraq and Saudi Arabia to combine forces for an offensive against Iran. This thing is by no means slowing down, it's accelerating. Directed energy weapons used in the California fires? So it seems. A lot of compelling information on those videos on YouTube. Weather-controlled hurricanes. Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. The 5G network coming online, where they're getting ready to turn the switch on a controlled microwave transmission system with power cables this thick, capable, not trying to do the 3-6 sign, just showing you the circle with my hand. And if you know anything about electricity, look how small your toaster power cable is. So when they got power cables that big, and they turn those things up, they turn the dial up and microwave your community, there's not a darn thing you can do about it. You're just going to sit there and start freezing, cooking from the inside out, like those trees in California. And now they got nuclear weapons. These people working towards a new age and a new world order, bringing us the gay agenda and transgenderism and trying to disarm the USA people and all this other terrorism and threats of climate change and incoming Planet X, the destroyer Nibiru. Anyways, all populated by volunteers who believed in the cause. Had to give way to a more impersonal institutions of universal military service, universal public education, promotion of the basis of competence and merit rather than party affiliation. Many aspects of this debate coalesced, at least for his critics, in Ben-Gurion's unwavering support for the nuclear arsenal. Some of his opponents in the 1965 election viewed Dimona as nothing more than a collection of competent scientists and bureaucrats with unclear ideological affiliations who had created a powerful weapon away from public scrutiny and approval. As usual, I usually don't get to read too much from the books, but I had to show all that other material to at least get my mind correct at who we're dealing with and how long this has been going on, all the way since the biblical descriptions during the birth of Jesus Christ and him being crucified, in the Old Testament, even taking it back 2,000 more years, and Moses coming down the mountain after supposedly helping the Hebrews escape imprisonment in Egypt, and only to find the Jews had collected all the gold, built a golden calf, and were practicing the ancient mystery religion of worshiping the cow, Moloch, the demon, a drunken orgy. So that was Hebrew versus Hebrew, with Jesus being a Hebrew and the ones who wanted to crucify him. And many people were followers of Jesus, and they were people who lived in that area, I guess ancient Hebrews. So that was Hebrew versus Hebrew. So it had nothing to do with people from elsewhere. And this has permeated the world with all kinds of problems, even in South Africa, where they were testing the nuclear weapons for Israel for thousands of years. And apparently they're into some kind of ancient mystery occult religion with some kind of demonic spiritual beings who assist them with their power and control. Hence, that could be their secret to gaining control and financial control of places wherever they went, even marrying into wealthy, rich families, and then maybe the spouses would conveniently die off, and becoming the magicians and controllers of kings and other leaders, even President Ronald Reagan and then President George Bush and President Obama, all with these Jewish advisors and even organizations from secret societies, councils of foreign relation, Freemasons, George Bush and the Skull and Bones, the Heritage Foundation, Abraham Lincoln involved in the Rosicrucians, George Washington sits on a large chair like a throne in the Washington Monument with his hands like this and this, as above, so below, with a serpent on his chair and an eye, and he's half naked with a robe. What's it take for people to wake up? I wonder. And then they don't want people to believe in God and Jesus and all that stuff, but yet people are believing in all this satanic stuff. Even getting tattoos of demons and daggers and monsters all over their body. And your downtown areas with all the graffiti of gigantic skulls and eyes and other kinds of symbols. Hollywood people doing this. And the 3 6s doing this. And doing this. And so much more. Katy Perry, Madonna, Lady Gaga, Miley Cyrus, Bieber, the lyrics to the songs, the satanic rituals, Switzerland tunnel opening, Eurovision, Conchita Wurst, goddess of destruction projected on the Empire building, the rainbows put on bridges and major public buildings all across the country when the Supreme Court passed some certain legislation banning states from banning gay marriage. All orchestrated and planned. So is it hard to believe that they're using directed energy weapon to selectively destroy areas in Northern California, the wealthy homes and the vineyards, or bring us hurricanes into Texas and Florida? It just seemed too strange to be true. And the chemtrailing in the sky is off the chart, and the 5G network is about to come online with cables this big that seems to give them a lot of power. Just saying, put all this stuff into context. And then be very afraid. Speaking of that, I think I'm going to stop this video and insert a recent video I was watching from Dane Wigington, about 6 minutes. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But I thought it was that important that I would include it.
The weather makers, otherwise known as the geoengineers, continue to completely disrupt Earth's climate and weather patterns. Ongoing atmospheric aerosol spraying operations are saturating skies all over the world with electrically conductive, heavy metal, and chemical nanoparticles. The unimaginably small nanoparticles that are being sprayed into the atmosphere can and are being manipulated with extremely powerful radio frequency microwave transmissions. The animation being shown is of the NexRad radio frequency microwave transmission facility located near Eureka, California. This transmission was recorded on November 15, 2017. The effect that the transmissions from this facility can inflict on the incoming flows of precipitation is absolutely undeniable. What is occurring? The microwave transmissions are repelling and scattering the atmospheric particulates, which in turn scatters the condensation nuclei, which in effect scatters and greatly diminishes the precipitation that actually falls within the reach of the transmission signals, or even beyond. The climate engineers can then effectively migrate this moisture to other regions. How profoundly do these transmissions disrupt the flow of precipitation? This animation loop provides shocking proof. The satellite radar loop being shown was recorded during the same window of time which the previous microwave transmission animation was recorded. The signature of the microwave transmission facility, located just southwest of Eureka, California, is blatantly obvious, as is the complete elimination of incoming precipitation over this region during this window of time when the transmissions appear to be at full power. One other feature to note is just north of Sacramento, where there is another hole being blasted in the incoming precipitation. This is from a transmission site near Beale Air Force Base. The animation of the transmission from the Beale facility is even more shocking. I'll show that in a moment. Please bear with me. Why are the geoengineers scattering the incoming precipitation into rainless cloud cover over the widest possible region? Welcome to solar radiation management, the highly destructive climate intervention process of attempting to play God with the weather, attempting to create mass expanses of often rainless cloud cover to block the sun for the stated purpose of slowing a runaway global warming scenario. Chemical ice nucleation processes and elements are often also utilized with the manipulated cloud canopies. This is done to engineer short-term surface cooldowns. These processes can even chemically convert precipitation that should have fallen in liquid form into frozen form, often creating weather whiplash scenarios by radically cooling the surface temperatures. Short-term cooldowns. The paradox is this. After over 70 years of illegal covert climate engineering operations, all available data makes clear the fact that geoengineering is further fueling planetary meltdown overall, not mitigating it. And of course, the highly toxic nanoparticulates of heavy metals and chemicals being sprayed are completely contaminating the entire planet and every single breath we take. How severely are the climate intervention operations impacting atmospheric wind currents and pressure zones? This wind current animation reveals shockingly anomalous wind patterns and circulations. Geoengineering programs are nothing short of weather warfare. The entire climate system is being disrupted, derailed, and devastated. This final animation is from a weather modification radio frequency microwave transmission facility near Beale Air Force Base in California. This animation was also recorded on the morning of November 15th, 2017. It shows in truly shocking fashion the profound impact microwave transmissions have on precipitation and thus the weather. As the flow of precipitation encounters the microwave transmissions, it is blown apart and dispersed. This satellite radar image was taken at the same time as the background transmission animation was recorded. The hole in the incoming precipitation flow around the transmission site is very easy to identify. In the center of the image, north of Sacramento. In this more close-up image, the effect is much more evident and even more undeniable. How extensive is the network of radio frequency microwave transmission facilities? There's a virtual grid of them across the US and elsewhere, and that grid is expanding rapidly. These transmissions are not only completely disrupting our weather, but are also extremely harmful to the entire web of life and all life forms. Who gave governments around the world the right to intervene in Earth's climate and life support systems? Who gave the climate engineers the right to decide where it will rain, where it won't, how much rain will fall, and how contaminated that rain will be? Geoengineering operations are tearing apart Earth's life support systems. Populations must be awakened to the ongoing global weather warfare assault. The effort to awaken them is a responsibility that we all must bear. Passing on credible data to the as of yet unaware is absolutely critical. Check the homepage of geoengineeringwatch.org for the most powerful and effective awareness materials available, including free downloadable links for activists to print their own materials locally. Absolutely all of us are needed in this most critical battle to expose and halt the climate engineering insanity. Make your voice heard. Every single day counts. This is Dane Wigington with geoengineeringwatch.org.
All right, I have a few minutes to read from this book. Levi Erskle's goal was to find a middle ground between the White House, with its insistence on international inspections, and pro-nuclear faction of the Mapiel Party, led by David Ben-Gurion, who from retirement turned his insistence on an Israeli nuclear arsenal into a political last hurrah. The Prime Minister's dilemma was not whether to go nuclear, but when and at what cost, in terms of the competing need to equip and train the conventional units of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. This is a country sucking a couple billion plus a year out of the U.S. alone. Can you imagine a tiny dot on the map having all that money? And it's got to be trillion a year from all the countries it's getting it from, like Germany. And since 1948, that's like 60 plus years. Is there any doubt that they can obtain this global order? And how many people have been assassinated? How much propaganda is being pumped out every day? And how many of these activities are ongoing, like geoengineering and warfare against our welfare and our health every day, right now? November 2017. It's off the chart. 2015. Jade Helm, where they had troops all around the United States and equipment having military exercises, testing software that would make decision on who gets abducted and killed and controlled. It won't be people. It's all going to be like metadata, knowing who you talk to, what you purchased, do you have a gun, what video did you buy, what video did you watch, what book, etc. Who do you know? Just because you know somebody and you talk to somebody who's on the list might put you on the list if you're using metadata. Computer keywords. The debate over the nuclear option had surfaced in the nation's newspapers in deliberately innocuous language long before Erskle took office. In mid-1962, for example, Shimon Peres and former Army Chief of the Staff Moshe Dayan, then Ben-Gurion's Minister of Agriculture, took advantage of the funeral of a prominent Zionist military leader. A Zionist military leader. That's a person. You look where my finger is. A Zionist military leader. Zionism is world domination from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, part of the global order. Protocols of Zion. Go read them. Communist Manifesto. The funeral of prominent Zionist military leader to warn their peers that Israel's existence was linked to the technological achievements of the 1970s and investment in the equipment of the future. In April 1963, Dayan wrote an article in Mariah, I guess it's a magazine, the afternoon newspaper, urging the Israeli arms industry to keep pace with the Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser's effort to build nuclear weapons. So they were accusing Egypt's president of desiring to build nuclear weapons. So they needed nuclear weapons. In the era of rockets with conventional and unconventional warheads, Diane wrote, we must diligently develop these weapons so we don't lag. So just like the Cold War they had in the United States between the US and Russia, between NATO, Britain, Europe, and Russia, which was all fabricated so the powers that be could spend fortunes even developing biological and chemical weapons, and more nuclear weapons and more nuclear missiles, and Star Wars where they wanted to put nuclear warheads and directed energy beams into space. It was all a strategic deception and plan, and they were doing the same thing over there in the Middle East, accusing Egypt here of obtaining nuclear weapons. And now, of course, they're accusing Iran maybe of obtaining nuclear weapons. So they demonize Germany, they demonize America, they demonize Russia, they demonize the Ukraine, they demonize everybody that opposes them. Ben-Gurion was even more explicit in an interview with columnist C.L. Sulzberger of the New York Times 5 months after leaving office. Sulzberger quoted Ben-Gurion's concern about a rocket-armed Israel, added, as a result, he, Ben-Gurion, hints grimly that in its nearby Dimona reactor, Israel itself may be experimenting with military atomics. So who do you think, from the research I've been sharing here, who do you think is controlling the geoengineering right now, dumping chemicals in the sky in the electromagnetic transmissions? And if you know anything about steam, you know if you put a pot of boiling water on the burner, it'll eventually evaporate. If you ever made coffee and forgot that you put the water to boil, or tea, and you walked away for a few minutes and you come back and the water's gone. Where did the water go? So if they are electromagnetic radiations aimed at the sky, at the clouds, they're not going to go through the process of condensation and come down as rainfall. They're going to get heated up and evaporate and not rain. And apparently with those big thick cables on the 5G network and all those microwave cell phone towers and Gwen-based towers with cobweb-like antennas in the ground, and the HARP transmitters and directed energy weapons maybe in space, and satellite systems with the transmitters in space, can they control the weather? The answer seems absolutely yes. There's so much evidence and so many patents and all that, and so many corporations making millions and billions off of government contracts, working for countries and political parties and corporations. Back to the book here. So it says here, they're experimenting with military atomics. Nuclear energy cannot be ruled out, the ex-prime minister was quoted as saying, because Nasser won't give up, so the president of Egypt. Nor will he risk war again until he's sure he can win. This means atomic war, and he has a large desert in which to test. We can't test here. Sulzberger's column was published on Saturday, November 16th, 1963. So you can see why back in 2001 they did 911. It's just part of an ongoing plan. The Hegelian dialectic, cause and effect. The divide and conquer, Republicans and Democrats, gays and straights against the Christians and conservatives, blacks against whites, America against the Arabs, America against Russia, America against China. They're trying to bring us the prophesized World War III as depicted by Albert Pike, leader for the Freemasons during the Civil War era, 1880s, 1890s. Lots of evidence here if you just pay attention. The Hersh government, under pressure from the President Kennedy and then from Johnson, worked at keeping the lid on, but had no qualms in stretching the truth to do so. So the Israeli, apparently supposed to be America's best friends, allies, continue to lie and deceive. All right, continuing to read from the book, which you can go find online, used bookstore for a couple bucks, new bookstore, etc., maybe the library. In December 1963, Shimon Yatish, director of the scientific programs for the Defense Ministry, publicly told a group of Israeli scientists, writers, that as they had assumed, the advanced reactor at Dimona would produce plutonium as a byproduct. However, Yatash insisted that the Israeli government had no plans to build a separate plant for chemically reprocessing plutonium. Yatash, who had been trained at the Argonne National Laboratories in Illinois, was then one of Israel's leading experts in the chemistry of plutonium and knew that French construction companies had started up once again on the underground reprocessing plant at Dimona. That French construction companies had started up once again on the underground reprocessing plant at Dimona. So France was helping Israel obtain its nuclear weapons plutonium reprocessing facility. Eshkol's apprehension about committing Israel to the mass production of nuclear weapons did not impede the steady progress at Dimona. By mid-1964, the reactor had been in operation for almost 2 years, and the reprocessing plant with its remote-controlled laboratories and computer-driven machinery was essentially completed and ready to begin producing weapons-grade plutonium from the reactor's spent uranium fuel rods. Israel's nuclear facilities eventually would include a weapons assembly plant in Haifa to the north and a well-fortified nuclear strategic igloo at the Tel Nof fighter base near Rehavat. Wow, I guess those billions they got from the United States every year for 60 years was money well spent on their nuclear arsenal, plus a lot of other technological advancements, probably part of the geoengineering going on in the world. And with the Samson option, if we stop them from their attack on we the humanity today, 24/7, the secret societies and these cults of the mystery religion, with all the satanic symbolisms that they put on display all the time, they're telling us what they're doing. This is a spiritual cosmic battle. They don't want you to believe in Christianity or other religions. They want to discredit Jesus, because they know if we pray and we believe, they can't steal our souls. This seems to be a war at a much higher level, a spiritual cosmic level. Nobody gets off earth alive. Where does your soul go when you die? Can they mind control us so that we make wrong decisions? It appears they are. Extreme security is a way of life inside the nuclear complex, especially at Dimona, which is under the constant watch of the Israeli troops, electronic detection systems, and the radar screens linked to a missile battery. So don't even try to fly over this area in Israel. All aircraft, including those belonging to the Israeli Air Force, are forbidden to overfly the facility, and to do so at perilous risk. Well-placed Israeli sources say that the physicists and technicians at Dimona conducted at least one successful low-yield nuclear test somewhere in the mid-1960s at the underground cavern near the Israeli-Egyptian border in the Negev Desert. Such detonations, known in the weapons community as zero yield, produce a fusion yield that is low but discernible and are considered to be perfectly reliable measurement of the overall weapons assembly system. The test was said to have shaken parts of the Sinai. That would be that huge piece of land, the size of Long Island or bigger, between Israel and the mainland, which is Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, the mainland off towards the east. Then the Sinai is a big piece of land like the shape of my hand. Then, of course, to the west is Saudi Arabia, the huge desert, and Egypt. Look at a map. So it was shaken parts of the Sinai. In the early 1965, completion of the underground reprocessing plant removed the last barrier to Israel's nuclear ambitions. It also heightened the ongoing debate inside the government over the issue. Completion of the reprocessing plant also made it even more essential that Floyd Kollner's annual visits to Dimona continue to produce nothing, and the Israeli cover-up was constantly being improved and embellished by Yinmanen Bloomberg and his colleagues in the Office of Special Tasks. International inspections by the International AEI Inspection Group, who inspect the Iran for its nuclear weapons, were of course considered and rejected in the Kennedy years. So Israel was rejecting the IAEA and the Atomic Inspection Agency, but of course they're forcing it on Iran. In the mid-1960s, Dimona's managers came up with a new method of hiding its underground world. Members of the Israeli Defense Forces 269th General Staff Reconnaissance Unit, the most elite underground group in the nation, were ordered to the nuclear facility a few weeks before the arrival of a Collier inspection and told to bring with them one former 269th member recalled 8 semi-tractor trailers loaded with grass. It was sod. So the nuclear inspectors were coming, but they delivered 8 semi-tractor trailers of sod in the desert now. It was camouflage. So they were going to sod over everything, and when the inspectors showed up, they had workmen out there with garden hoses watering the sod in the desert. And it didn't fool the inspectors. They seen by satellites that this sod mysteriously appeared overnight. Some notes on the bottom here. During the 1967 Six-Day War, an Israeli Mirage 3 was shot down when its pilot, either confused or dealing with equipment problems, ventured into Dimona's airspace. So even an Israeli jet pilot accidentally went over this airspace and was shot down by the Israelis protecting this nuclear site. All right, another one, an Air Force fighter plane shot down a commercial jet of 108 people aboard, and Israeli claimed the evidence that the plane was heading for Dimona. So that was a Libyan airline apparently flying in the wrong airspace and was shot down by an Israeli Air Force jet. Taylor, in a 1988 paper presented to an arms control seminar in London, noted that the high-yield tests are reliable enough to be useful to countries when considerable weapons testing experience. But he added they can also be useful to countries starting nuclear weapons development if they want to test without detection. So much espionage. I read so little from this book. I have been reading from it periodically in the last year or so, like I have many books here. This book here, I was reading parts of this for several years. And the first part I read from this that I shared, which maybe I'll read again and end this video. Do you admire and celebrate exceptional achievement? Or do you impugn it and seek to tear it down? Some people admire success, some people envy it. The enviers hate Israel. And the Encyclopedia Judaica tells us that their religion was the Kabbalah. Many Kabbalists, which is in the Encyclopedia Judaica, were accused of sorcery, which I say is witchcraft. And also in the Encyclopedia Judaica, they say the Kabbalah is similar to the Theophist Society, the ancient mystery religion of Egypt, which is also referenced in Morals and Dogma for the Freemasons. And the Theophist Society was publishing the Lucifer magazine, and all these materials reference the Egyptian hieroglyphics, Isis, Osiris, Horus, and the pyramid on the US $1 bill, and the obelisk in all of our downtown city parks, city squares, downtown in front of the courthouse. The obelisk, that pointy statue, is supposed to represent the phallic unit of Osiris, who apparently was killed by his brother Timaeus, and his body was cut up into 17 parts, and Isis, his wife, searched the world over, found 16 of his body parts, put them back together, but she couldn't find the phallic unit. Anyways, Osiris and Isis had a son called Horus, another god, represented as the all-seeing eye, and that's on the US $1 bill above the pyramid with the sun's rays behind it, which is representing the sun god cult religion, which is part of this mystery religion. So apparently these Kabbalists, these Hebrews in control of Zionism, who created communism, who control the United Nations and the banking systems and our governments and world, and are actively geoengineering the world and devitalizing humans and other life all over the planet. They're slowly destroying everything. And they have nuclear weapons in the Samson option. So if anybody tries to stop them from microwaving you or me, dumping chemicals in the sky, polluting our waterways, radioactive energies, pollutions, radiations in the oceans and in the air. They got websites you can go look up on the internet with these nuclear radiation monitors all over the United States. And they have different colors to show you what the threat level is. And a lot of times when I go check that, it's in the danger zone all over the USA, whether it's leakage from nuclear power plants or from the Fukushima radiations of the winds blowing across the country. And I gotta ask, would they intentionally leak stuff from nuclear power plants? If they intentionally dump chemicals from the sky? And I got a meter sitting right here on my desk. And I monitor this stuff every day. But you can't see it. There we go. And sometimes it goes up to 30 and 40 and higher. And it does have an alarm, and if it ever starts beeping here in my office, I'm going to be a little concerned. But when I check the monitors on the internet, you can go to these sites and see a picture of the U.S. and all these people with meters just like this hooked up to their computer. You can't say it. That's weird. There we go. You can buy one of these for $120, $30, and it does plug into your computer. And if you want to, you can be one of those monitors you see on the charts. So it does appear that the world is under attack. Slowly but surely, they're closing in on something. Threats of economic collapse, threats of running out of gas or oil, nuclear power plants, a lot of them located right next to the waterways, terrorist attacks, directed energy weapons, weather control, terrorism, trying to get more political support for gun control, more monitoring systems everywhere, the 5G microwave transmission system coming online, which seems to be one of the most imminent threats to humanity. Once they turn that on, they can just push a button, start irritating and nuking people, cooking us all from the inside out, anywhere across the country. And people would not even know why it's happening. They could blame it on an EMP. They could blame it on some radiation leak from Fukushima. We won't know. Quite mysterious indeed. What the heck is going on? Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.